Hey guys, today we are obviously talking the Hulk, and specifically we're talking about the Maximum Series Hulk. So if you haven't already seen it, I've done a Maximum Series Spider-Man video that I'll link right over here. Now in that video, I talked about whether or not the Spider-Man figure is really a premium figure, because with the higher prices, Hasbro is saying that, well, there's better articulation, there's more accessories, so on and so forth. And while I did compare that Spider-Man to the Mayfix version, I don't really have an alternate version of Hulk to compare it to. I personally don't have the Select version, even though I know a lot of people like the Select version, but for me, I don't really like the Select figures all that much. No shame to you if you do, but I don't have one. So instead, we're actually going to compare it to our previous releases to really get a better idea of if the improvements that Hasbro has made are really a fair explanation as to why the price is higher or not. So we'll be taking a look at the box, accessories, and articulation, so stick around and we'll get right into it. Here's our box, and so far it's basically the same thing as our Spider-Man box, and just to show you that it is. So really the design cues are pretty much exactly the same. I think so far we're seeing differences in the little comic sides that they're doing around the edges, but other than that, the placement of everything is the same. Here is a side shot of our Hulk, and you can see I'm using the accessories here, so that's cool to see. Here is our other side when we have a nice other pose over here. That's cool. And then here is our backside, which is giving us the featured thunderclap position and special effects. So now let's get this thing opened. So here's our unboxed figure, and we are looking at the accessories first. And specifically, I'm gonna start with the effects pieces. So I think the big one to start with is gonna be this missile thing, which is really neat in concept. It comes in two parts because you can display him as if he broke it apart, or you can also display it as a single rocket as so. The blast effect also comes off, and that's kind of neat. I'm not sure if we've actually had one quite like this before. Most of the ones that I can think of at least is kind of pointed as if it's like an Iron Man blast effect, where it's like him and it's coming from the boots because he's flying around kind of thing. Otherwise, it's a nice idea, but I don't know if it's the kind of thing that is helping to add to the cost of this in a positive way. Besides that, we have the pieces that make up the thunderclap, which we'll look at in just a second. So these are nice big pieces. They don't really bend a ton, but they're not really inflexible either. They can bend a bit. They do look nice. I do like, you know, how clear it is, and then the paint apps, or however it is that they added the color to it. It does look nice there, and same with this. And we'll take another look at this in just a second, but let's look at the actual additional hands first. So as you can see, he has a pair of gripping hands right there. And then of course, he has a pair of fists. And I did compare these to the other Hulks, and they do appear to be the same exact molds. And we'll talk more about molds in just a little bit. But new to the Hulk are these flat hands. And this is fun because this is what you would need for the thunderclap. I feel like these are pretty straightforward. I mean, you can see they are flat hands. You can see all the grooves in the hands and the fingernails. So pretty straightforward, but still well done. And then we have additional heads for our Hulk. So let's take a closer look at the heads. So here's the default head that comes on the body in package. Here's one of the alternate heads. And then here is the other alternate head. And they are all different styles in terms of artist. So I'm pretty sure that these are actually representing different storylines as well. I don't know the specifics of them. I do know that this one looks a lot like the head that comes with the Select Hulk, even though that one has a robotic thing on one of the sides. But the hairstyle and the mouth, it kind of looks a lot like that. So I'm assuming those are related. This one looks kind of familiar to me too in some ways, with kind of how wide the jaw is. I'll put a picture up if I can figure out where I'm remembering seeing something kind of like this. And then this one is actually pretty unique to me. I don't really recognize the hairstyle, although it kind of looks a bit like the Smart Hulk from the 90s that they used in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, with the exception of the face being kind of evil looking. So if you know, I'd love to know the specifics of what each head represents. Otherwise, the one thing that I do really like about this head in particular are the additional green paint apps. in the hair. I think that looks really nice. And we do have that in other Hulks, but we don't really have that in the alternate 2 Hulk heads, at least not in the same way as this one. So this one has it just a little bit, like I can kind of see it in real life here, but I'm not sure if that's coming off very well in video. And then a little bit more on the back side too. And then with the default, the sculpt, I'm not really seeing much green. It's like a dark green, but I really like the idea of like kind of the highlights that this one has. And then there is the Hulk himself and the articulation that follows. So really, I looked at this figure and a lot of it really is reuse from the previous Hulks that we have. So I'm really going to focus on what's new. So starting from the bottom, we have new toe articulation for the Hulk. And so Hulk can bend his toes like that. And they can also come down like that. Otherwise, the rest of the foot is effectively the same. So you can come down like that and up like that. But the real meat of this, of what's supposed to make it really nice, is the new chest. And so if you are unaware already, the chest has a kind of a central skeletal hard plastic to, you know, obviously hold it all together. And then around on top of it is this kind of much softer plastic that allows more articulation. So that's how you're supposed to be able to get the arms to be able to come in that much to be able to get that thunderclap. But what I want to show is that you can even see that, like, here's the rubber, and then you can kind of see inside where the hard plastic is there. And it might be kind of interesting to remove this, but I don't necessarily want to destroy this figure just to show you guys. But then you can also kind of see, if I lift it up here, you can kind of see what it really looks like. And you can see that this is attached here. You can see that it starts to get stressed right here because I've been pulling on it a bit. I don't want that to rip. There's another shot of the true skeletal inside. So it's interesting. I think it's a really nice idea. And I think it's actually pretty well executed as well. And since the main gimmick of this new release is the thunderclap, I'm going to go ahead and put it into position now. And here it is with the thunderclap accessories. And what's interesting is that the whoosh accessories to indicate that his arms came in, these actually do appear to be side specific. So you can actually notice that the coloring on these accessories are actually on top only, because on the bottom it's fully clear. I did accidentally try putting this one on this side first and it didn't fit quite right, and then when I swapped them it made a lot more sense. So I'm pretty confident that they are side specific. And then this middle piece doesn't really have anything to attach to, so it's really just like, once you get the hands close enough, you kind of just stick this part in there, and then he just kind of holds it, which is fine. It does work. I kind of wish there was a way to have it attached a little bit more firmly, but I can't really think of a way to do that myself. But I'm also not a maker of toys. I'm just a guy reviewing them. I will say I do like it a lot. It is really neat and a really nice idea. So it is cool to have, but whether or not it helps make this figure worth, quote unquote, worth the $60 retail is not something I am sure that it actually does. Again, I do think that the engineering for this is a really nice idea. I do think that we will get a lot more nice poses now that he can do some interesting stuff like that. I mean, we're pretty close to getting Hulk to being able to even cross his arms, which would be really nice. I think maybe if they were able to do more of this on the actual arms themselves, then maybe we could actually get him to fully cross his arms, and that would actually be a really neat thing to see. But for now, I think what we really need to do is do a comparison of our previous Hulks. Now on our left side, we have the 2-pack Hulk that came with the first appearance of Wolverine, and then we have our 20th anniversary Hulk. So both of them are pretty much the same figure. They're using the same exact mold, and then obviously just different paint apps and different head sculpts. Also, we have some slight variations of the accessories, but we're not too worried about those at the moment. And if you can't already tell, the newest Hulk really uses most of the same stuff that we already have as well. The new toe articulation looks like they legitimately just used the original feet and then split them up to give the toe articulation. And then with our chest piece, they probably did start new, since the shape couldn't be exactly like the original one, since they were going to make it out of the soft plastic anyway. Now, I do like the green and purple that they chose for this Hulk, I think the way it pops is much more comic-like in a way that I really like more than the other two so far. But there are certain paint apps about this that actually I'm really frustrated by, and let me show you what I mean by that. So first is right here. So you can see how the feet have like a light kind of a yellowish or maybe a light green on top, just so you know the Hulk isn't just fully just green. But you can see right here, like the stencil or pattern or however they did it, there's a very clear break right there, and that bugs me a lot. So whether that's a QC thing or a poor design, I really don't like that. And it's pretty much the same thing on this side too. So I don't think that's necessarily just QC, although it's not nearly as noticeable over on this side, maybe because it's a little bit light, like the paint itself is a little bit lighter, but you can still see the line there, at least in real life for sure. The other major paint problem that I have is the face. So the face itself looks nice, but it's the way that they now do the eyes and the eyebrows and the teeth. Like it looks printed on. I'm not saying that printing on the features are a bad thing, but if it looks printed on, then that's not a good thing either. And that's the same with all of the heads. So like, I don't know if it's by design, but the teeth just don't look quite right. Like it's just too many dots. It's just too obviously printed, and that really sucks. And you can see with the eyes as well, that you can just see kind of all the dots in there, and it really kind of throws me off. Now, to be fair to Hasbro, they've done this before, and they did that with the 20th. And you can kind of see in the eye that it's also kind of printed on, but it's not nearly as prominent as it is on the other ones. Also with the 20th, the teeth they look like they're like properly painted as opposed to kind of like the printed on painting, which it just really bothers me over here. And then with our original Hulk, we don't have that at all. So not only are the teeth perfectly painted, but the eyebrows and the eyes are perfectly painted as well. This is exactly the way I would want each of the new ones to look like in terms of the paint apps. The other thing that's been pointed out, and I'm less bothered by this, but I know other people will definitely be bothered by this, are kind of the white stuff that's painted on here and kind of on the fringe of the clothing as well. The problem is that it doesn't actually go the whole way around. So you can kind of see that it just stops right here, and that's kind of same along here too. I mean, I've seen people call it lazy, and I don't know if I would totally disagree, because on our 20th one, it goes the whole way around. So if that's an artistic choice, then I guess, but that's not really explained in any kind of way, especially because this does go this way, but then they don't do it over here. So that's kind of forgivable, right? But with our newest one, that's kind of frustrating. So definitely points off for that for me. And of course, the real question of it all is this really worth the $60 retail price tag that they are pricing at? And that kind of depends. There's a lot of variables to consider. Now, on the one hand, you can say that, you know, obviously they were able to make these figures before, so why do they need to charge so much? The accessories aren't really that big of a deal to add an additional $20, $30 to the price tag, right? That's a maybe. It's possible that the reason why they made so few Hulks in the first place is because of how expensive that they potentially are to make. I'm not a toy engineer or anything like that, but they are physically bigger figures, which means that they cost more to ship. So it's very possible that they've only made so many so far because they're not as profitable as the regular 6-inch, you know, Spider-Man figures are, right? It's possible that $60 is the price that they need to charge in order to make them more profitable. So the question I would have to you is, if we started getting a lot more Hulks and a lot of different variations of the Hulk, would that be worth the $60 price tag or not? Otherwise, you're waiting several years between each Hulk release, and we only have the 2 Green Hulks, now the third one as well, but we only had the 2 for the longest time. So that's really a tough call for me personally. And obviously, I still haven't quite answered the question of whether or not it's worth the $60. And I would say not quite. I would say if this were priced at maybe $50, that it's a much better value. Personally, I did pay $50 for this. Best Buy had it for $50. I'm pretty confident that that was a pricing error because they eventually did update it to the $60 price. And I feel okay with the $50 price, even though obviously I would have preferred the prices that we got with the other figures. Here are some things I also want you to keep in mind. This figure was part of a 2-pack, and the retail on that was about $50. And that was back in 2019 when the Legends figures were really starting to make a stride with collectors. And that was with Wolverine, and while that is a unique Wolverine, the bulk of that 2-pack was really about the Hulk. And so even though that was priced at $50 and the retail on the regular 6 Legends were $20, I don't know if I would really qualify that this was really fairly a $30 figure. I'd still put this closer to a $40 figure, just because the Wolverine body is still something that they easily reused and just made a few changes on. So again, I would put this more at 40, and this one actually retailed for closer to $45 when it came out. So we're bumping this to $60, right? And if you look at a comparison of the accessories, and I'll put them up on screen right now, while the 20th had some interesting accessories and the little stand thing that he comes with is kind of neat, I don't think that's especially special either. One more additional head than our 20th did. And then the whole thunderclap thing and the missile thing versus the 20th foot stomping thing and the and that robot head thing as if he ripped it off. So I think the accessories on the new release are definitely better than that, but I still wouldn't quite say it's quite worth the $60 price tag. I don't think that it's too far off because, again, I do think that $50 is actually a fair value for the newest Hulk. If you're trying to decide between which Hulks to get, usually Hulks actually kind of end up being pretty expensive on the aftermarket. So if you're in the market for Hulk and don't have a green Hulk yet, I would say definitely get this one. It's going to be the best one you can get for the money because the other two are likely going to be way more expensive on eBay and are just not worth it in terms of pricing. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more Hulk stuff, then check that video out over here.